So the generic point I'm trying to make to you is that I think the second thing that we have to ante up is we got to speak to people's real problems, real live problems. It's about their jobs. It's about their health care. It's about the education of their kids. It's about whether or not they're going to take care of their mothers. It's about fathers. It's about whether or not they're going to be able to pay to fill up the gas tank, keep the tractor running on the farm, and make sure that you're able to pay for the running and the cost of heating your home and the like. And we don't talk that way much more about, you know, we don't speak to people the way we used to, at least not nationally. And so what I believe is, I believe that we have a significant opportunity as a party to regain control of the agenda. Not just to regain the presidency for 4 years, but I think we have a chance to regain the issues, regain control of the agenda for the next 2 decades. If we speak to the American people straightforwardly, if we tell them the truth, if we tell them what the problems are, we tell them what our answers are, we're not afraid to tell them that it's not going to be easy, and we tell them what they have to do, and let's say choose. You don't like what we stand for? Vote for the other guy. But here are the priorities. Here's what I stand for. Here's what we're going to do as a party. And I think if we are, and I guess to sum it all up, I think our people are looking for authenticity. They're looking for somebody who's real. Now, you all are going to have to decide whether that's me or any one of the other candidates. We got a lot of good candidates running. We got a lot of good Democrats running. And I've adopted, and I will adopt throughout this campaign, what used to be referred to as Ronald Reagan's 11th commandment. I will never speak ill of another Democrat. But you're going to have to make a judgment. You're going to have to make a judgment. Thank you. You're going to have to make a judgment, Grady and everybody else in here, as my grandfather used to say, who the horse is that can carry the sleigh. Who's the one that can carry the load here to get us through? And the last point I'll make to you is this. A lot of the other candidates running the Democratic Party, and they're probably right, think that the best way for us to win back the White House and regain control of the agenda is win the same 20 states that Gore won and that Kerry won and the District of Columbia plus one more. That's how you win. Now that may be the surest way to win, by picking up Florida or Ohio or Colorado, if that's one of the key states this time, or New Mexico. But it's not the way you're going to be able to turn this country around. If the next Democratic nominee for the presidency of the United States cannot compete in at least a dozen red states, then he or she will not be able to govern. Because there's no 51% solution to the energy crisis. There's no 51% solution to the education crisis. There's no 51% solution to the healthcare crisis. It requires us building a consensus as a nation. And so, folks, my plan is, and it may not be the surest way to win, but my plan is to campaign in a lot of red states. Because if I can't win, I may not be able to win a general election in South Carolina here, and maybe no Democrat can. It's a tough road right now as you rebuild this party. But guess what? If we only get 30% of the vote, you can't govern. I got to be able to get 45, 47, 48, 49% of the vote in this state, the Democratic nominee, so you can begin to rebuild the Democratic Party. You got to be able to do that in Nebraska. You got to be able to do that in Kansas. You got to be able to do that across the country. You don't have to win. But when I become president of the United States, I'm running because I want a national energy policy. In order to get that policy, if you're a Democratic senator from a red state and I go to you to make a tough vote, and you say, hey, Joe, I love you, but you only got 32% of the vote in my state, I'm not going to get you to vote. And so, folks, I guess what I'm saying is it's time to reach out. I refuse to buy into the argument that we are so divided. I don't believe that. I don't believe a woman raising 2 kids in Lee County has any greater or any lesser desire for her kids than a woman raising 2 kids in Brooklyn, New York. I don't think they're any different about what their desires are. I think we let these guys convince us how different we are, red and blue. We're not. And I point out to you, if in 2000 our incumbent president had been able to run again, he would have won Louisiana, he would have won Missouri, he would have won Arkansas, he would have won Kentucky, he would have won Virginia, he would have won North Carolina. So this idea that all of a sudden we're just so divided, I just reject. So let me conclude by saying this. I think the American people are really ready. They're not afraid. We got to trust them more. We got to trust them more to tell them the truth and challenge them to do the things that have to be done. When in the history, including, sir, of your 92 young years, when have the American people ever let the country down? Ever let this country down when they've been challenged? What has this president done? This president has spent the last 6 years dividing us, not telling the American people the truth, because they're afraid. They're afraid to go out there and really campaign on the differences that have to be discussed. We shouldn't be afraid. I'll end by saying that imagine if after 9/11, imagine had Franklin Roosevelt or John Kennedy been president of the United States. I imagine you would have heard them say something like, "My fellow Americans, we've been dealt a tragic blow. 3,000 of our citizens have been murdered. We find ourselves in a position where our economy's in real trouble. But like every generation before us, we will overcome this and we'll be better for it." I'm making 2 announcements today. The first announcement I'm making is I've called a meeting of the world's major powers to meet in Europe beginning on October the 1st for us to jointly plan the demise of the rise of Islamic fundamentalism. And secondly, I'm sending an energy bill to the United States Congress. And it's going to free us from the iron grip of the axis of oil. It's going to be difficult. But I expect your support. Who would have said no? Who would have said, no, that's too tough? But what did we do? He told us to go fly and go to the mall. Not ridiculous things. Keep the airline industry moving, get the economy running. And then went about dividing us. We got to unite this country. We got to unite this country. The differences aren't as deep as people make them out to be. And so I think that when the press asks me with all the troubles, why would you want to be president? I can think of no greater opportunity than exists for the next president of the United States. Not since Franklin Roosevelt in 1932. The next president of the United States has an opportunity to literally change the direction of the world. That's not hyperbole. Literally has an opportunity to change the direction of the world and to invigorate this country in a way that hasn't happened in 25 years, probably 35 years, because the country's ready. We are the essential nation. And so, folks, I think we got to trust the folks a little more. And it's going to be up to you, because you all are going to decide who the next president is. And that's not, again, that's not a joke. I predict to you that there's only going to be 2 of us coming into South Carolina. The field will have been winnowed by then. You all are going to decide, both on the Republican side, your Republican colleagues, and the Democratic side, who the next nominee is going to be. So it's in the hands of the folks of South Carolina in both parties. And I don't have to tell you independents are going to play a role in that. They're going to decide. Are they going to vote in a Republican primary? Are they going to vote in a Democratic primary? And so there's a lot at stake here. You got a great opportunity to determine who the next president is. And the only thing I'm going to tell you is I'm like a poor relative. I show up when I'm invited. And so I'm going to be all over y'all as much as I can, trying to make the case I'm the guy. So I hope you look me over. I appreciate you giving me the time. Why don't I hush up and I'll talk about anything you want to talk about. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it.